Hi guys, I'm gonna review Kingsman. Okay, that was stupid. I'm gonna review Kingsman, the Secret Service. I, which I watched it this week, like this last weekend, and I'm recording this only like 2 days after watching it. So for once, I'm actually recording a review quickly after watching the movie. Usually it's like a week later I finally get around to it, or a month later I finally get around to it. Why? Because I'm lazy as hell. That's why. But but no, this was a really good movie. Like it was very like it was like a spy movie, but it was like an older. It wasn't like the serious spy movie that we. It was more the comedic weird pronounce comedic one. Basically, there's this secret spy organization. Uh, there's the secret spy organization. One of the spy members, they're finding new recruits after this one spy is killed, and and they and and the main the the and one of the spies, Galahad, his recruit is this kid that he gave this necklace thing back when the kid's dad, who was a Kingsman, died, and they show the kid and his mom, their life, his and him and his mom's, their lives have gone to crap. Like she married, was she? It never really specifies whether she was married or just dating him, but I think it was just dating, but she was dating this like abusive guy. The kid's getting into trouble. He like steals a dude's car, just and then he gets recruited into the spy agency and ends up helping stop this evil mastermind's plan. Very very classic spy stuff, but the plot isn't the focus of the movie. It's you've seen it before, but it's done very well. The villain. I'm just gonna start out by talking about him because he was really fun. I liked him. Samuel L. Jackson uh, played. I think his name was like something Valentine. His last name was Valentine, and that doesn't sound very villainly. That's because he's not like he shoots one person in the entire movie. Other than that, I don't think he ever directly harms anyone. And even after he shoots this one specific character, he turns around to his assistant, who she was cool too. She had like these awesome like blade legs, and she would like she was like an amputee, and she had like these awesome blade legs, but she was like super badass. Like she would run around, like in the beginning of the movie, she like slices a dude in half, and he just like it's so funny. But like she was super like just complete. She like slices a gun in half too. She's just complete badass. So she basically she does most of the fighting for him. But like they turn around like after he shoots this one character, they turn around. She's like, "Didn't that feel good?" He's like, "No, it felt disgusting." That was really bad. But he also so he's disgusted by killing people. He pukes at the sight of blood, which they actually do a funny gag with at the end of the movie. And he has a lisp too. So it's like just this really like non-threatening, but at the same time kind of threatening in a comical way villain. It's hilarious. Like he gets killed and he's like laying there about to die, and the main character walks up to him. He's like, "Sup, man." He says that. He literally goes, "Sup, man," as he's like has like a sword through has like a blade through his chest. I'm like he's just a very funny villain. Yeah, and then he like triggers off this, and his plan is very unique too. I'll talk about it in a minute because it's kind of spoilers, but very 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 good movie. And they do some things that you don't expect though. A character dies part way through the movie that is not a character you would expect to die. It's not the kid. It's not the kid that that the spy Galahad recruits for the training. It's not him. It's someone else. Another major character dies, and it's like, what? Didn't expect that. And the movie even kind of plays on that. There are two moments in the movie where it goes really meta, and it's when Galahad and Valentine, it's kind of this funny back and forth thing where they keep meeting up with each other, and basically Galahad goes to Valentine's house. They chit chat. Galahad knows something's up, and Valentine is also suspicious. So they're both suspicious of each other, and they start talking about spy movies. And it's this weird sort of meta thing where they're like, I like the spy movies with the classy gentleman spies like James Bond and stuff, like the old spy movies, the ones that Kingsman is trying to replicate, the movie Kingsman, not the agency. I talked for too long without breathing, but and then the bad guy, or Samuel L. Jackson, Valentine, whatever you want to call him, he starts talking about how he always wanted to be a gentleman, always thought being a gentleman spy would be cool, and then the gentleman spy talks about how he always thought being a megalomaniacal, like crazy villain, eccentric villain type would be cool, which is what Samuel L. Jackson's character. So it's like this weird, and then they meet again, and Samuel L. Jackson is like in because they run this like tailor store as a front, and they're like going back and forth. And actually, this is probably spoilers, but basically, there's two moments where they go really meta like that. There's another one later that factors into spoilers, so I'm not going to bring it up. But yeah, really good movie. Very funny. Although there's this one kind of awkward joke. I'm not going to go into it. It's like it's like towards the very end of the movie. It's like this really like awkward sexual joke that, I mean, like, I don't have anything against that kind of joke, but it was just very weird and out of place, which is funny, which is odd because the rest of the movie, comedic timing was very spot on and quick and like well honed. But there's just this one awkward joke at the end. This one awkward sex joke at the end, and then it kind of expands upon it a little bit later, and it's just like at the very end of the movie, and the whole like scene about it later. Basically, he's about to go kick the bad guy's ass, and he's talking to this lady who the bad guy trapped, and there's this really weird sexual line that she says, and then he goes and defeats the bad guy, and then comes back, and they have like a scene, not a sex scene, but like a scene that like expands on the joke, and it's just kind of weird. It was just out of place because other than that, the rest of the movie did not really have any jokes of sexual nature. Like there weren't very many female characters, and the ones that were there, like there's one female agent, but she's cool, and they never do any weird sexual stuff with her. So like it's just very out of place, the whole scene and the joke. But the joke in particular, like the scene, I was like, whatever. But the joke in particular, it made me cringe. Like I'm sitting there watching, and I remembered her hearing something about the joke previous to watching the movie on like a YouTube video or something, not in detail. But like I was watching that scene, and that joke comes, and I just cringed, and I'm like, ooh, that's what they were talking about in the video. And they were saying it was cringeworthy, and I'm like, they're right. That's a pretty cringeworthy joke. I mean, I wouldn't call it like offensive, but it was very like poorly timed, and very 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 cringeworthy. But other than that, the humor is spot on, and I recommend you see it because it's just a fun, entertaining romp through Spyland. Now I'll talk about spoilers a little bit, so you can click off, leave it up to you, whatever. But okay, so I was talking earlier about the scene where the spy and Samuel L. Jackson are talking. So Kingsman's like their front for their agency is like this tailor shop called Kingsman. That they're not very subtle in that sense, but and the villain shows up there a little bit later after the scene I was talking about previously, and the reason the villain shows up there is he bugged the spy, so he knows who the spy is and stuff, but the spy doesn't know that he bugged him. But then of course the villain shows up there, and he walks out of one of the dressing rooms, and they pan up him, and I'm like, it's gonna be the villain. So it was kind of predictable, like some like a person working at the tailor shop said, "Oh, there's someone in that room. Go in the other room." And I'm like, "It's gonna be the villain, isn't it?" And then he comes out and it's the villain, and they have a little dialogue exchange. This is the first time Samuel L. Jackson meets the kid, because before that, it's all Galahad the spy doing all the work because the kid's training and stuff. And so they have a little dialogue exchange, and Galahad ends up bugging the villain because, yeah, he knows something suspicious. The villain just happened to show up at his at the tailor there. So then they both. So it's this really weird thing where they both are suspicious of each other, and they both have bugged each other, but neither knows that the other is bugged. Like, and they have this sort of, they have like indirect confrontation. It's kind of funny. This thing that I found funny. But here's the major spoilers. So if you didn't click off before because you were like, whatever, I don't mind spoilers. This is the major spoiler. The character that I was talking about that was dying. I'll bring that up now. So another warning: major spoilers coming up right now. So well, actually, first I'm going to talk about the villain's plot. So if you don't mind hearing about what the villain's scheme is, keep watching. But the villain's scheme was very unique too. Probably the best part of that movie was the villains. His scheme. I mean, it's kind of standard. It's the whole plant something on a bunch of people that, and when it's set off, the people will all end up dying. Like it's like the standard eliminate a bunch of people to lower the to lower the human population kind of thing. So is that part is standard, but it's tied into like climate change, which is a really weird like non-hostile thing, but it fits the character because he seems like the type of guy who would be concerned about the environment, but he also seems like enough of an eccentric weirdo to do something like this. Basically, he's researched climate change, and he's discovered that no matter what we do, it seems that the global warming and all that stuff keeps happening, which I know a lot of people don't think is happening. I don't know. I'm not educated enough about it to give an opinion about it, but that's not important to this movie. Basically, he's got this plan where he's a billionaire, so he gave out free free SIM card chip things that have like free Wi-Fi and free phone calls, which of course tons of people are going to go get that. I know I would. But the SIM cards, when he can activate them, and when he activates them, everyone who has one, or at least you find out later, everyone who's near a phone that has one goes psycho and like tries to kill each other. So basically, he's got this plan to like kill a bunch of people by doing this, and he like contacts a bunch of world leaders. Which here's another thing I had a problem with, is it's kind of a suspension of disbelief thing. He contacts like this British Prime Minister and this prince, or I think it was the British, I don't know. It was some prime minister guy of some country and some princess of another country, or maybe the same country, I don't know. The princess doesn't agree to it. She's the one that they show later in the movie that makes the weird sexual joke that I mentioned earlier. She doesn't agree to it, but the prime minister guy does, and that was a little weird because it's like a plot to kill tons of people. So that was weird enough, but that I could have suspension of disbelief with. And then later, major spoilers, it's revealed that the leader of Kingsman is also under Valentine's paw, under Valentine's reach, because he supports it too, which kind of made sense for him because the way he was explaining it, it kind of made sense that like he would be okay with it since he's part of an agency that has no problems with killing, and technically it does fall under their rules about not killing unless it threatens another life, because eventually lives will be threatened by global warming, that kind of thing. But what really broke my suspension of disbelief was in the end they go to his secret bunker to defeat him, and he's gathered up all of these rich people and prominent people and world leaders and stuff who are all supporting him. There's even there's a scene where they show in the White House bunker, they have a bunch of politicians, and you see the back of a head of a black guy who's clearly supposed to be Obama. They never show his face, but like it's pretty obvious. And they all sit down in front of a table and are watching like the countdown timer. And it's like, really? He got all of these people to support him? I don't know. I was able to keep my suspension of disbelief with everything else, but I was able to suspend my disbelief with everything else, but that was the one thing where it's just like, I can understand why the Kingsman guy would support it. I can understand why one crazy prime minister would support it, but this many political leaders, I don't understand how they would support that, especially since it was like literally at first I thought it was just going to be like select groups of people that are like kind of crazy and are more of a detriment to humanity, because he starts it out by targeting this, like, he targets this the stereotypical racist homophobic crazy hick church that you see in movies a lot. And like he tested out by setting it off in that particular church because is full of bad people, the stereotypical crazy religious person. And oh god, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, but then you find out he's gonna like set it off for everyone outside of the like small group of people that are in like secret bunkers, and it's like, really? Is it? And it's just like, they really support that? Like, what? But suspension of disbelief. Now I'm going to talk about the character that dies. So if you still haven't clicked off by this point, you don't want this spoiled, because this is pretty cool that they did this. The second time they go meta, basically, he sets it off in this church that I mentioned earlier. He sets off his thing in the church. There's actually a funny thing that ties into what I was talking about earlier about the villain being, like, really, like, not, like kind of soft. Like, he sets off the thing, and everybody starts killing each other. And he turns away from his computer screen like, oh, fuck, I can't watch this. Which is really funny to me because he's like just set this off. But they make it pretty clear that he doesn't have any problem with killing. Like, as long as it's not him doing the killing, then it makes him uncomfortable. Because when he's talking to the girl after shooting that one guy, she's like, didn't it feel good? And he's like, no, it felt disgusting. But you just killed a whole room of people. He's like, no, they killed each other. So like it's pretty clear he doesn't see any like moral problems with setting off like all these people to do this. But anyway, he sets them off, and the Kingsman ends up stuck. The Galahad ends up in there, and up until this point, it's Galahad doing all the work basically, and there's this whole crazy scene where it's like ding 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 like rock, almost where it's like rock music, and he's just like going through the room killing everyone. He literally kills like everyone in the building. And it's a pretty awesome scene because it's like this dynamic, like not one continuous shot, but like a couple continuous shots of him just like swinging people around and stabbing them and shooting them and all this stuff. And there's a lot of scenes like that in the movie. The action in this movie is really good. I didn't mention that earlier. I don't know why, but the action is really good. So then he comes out, and they have another little meta moment where he's like, where the villain walks up to him, he's like, you think this is going to be the kind of thing where I tell you my plan, and I devise an elaborate way to kill you, and you devise a more elaborate way to escape. And he's like, this ain't this kind of movie. And then he shoots him, and he dies, and he doesn't come back, which is probably the biggest shock of the movie. I'm like, whoa, because he's like, other than the kid, he's the main character. And so up until then, he kind of was the main character. He was doing all the action. On the box art of the movie, he's like center. He's like the center picture. So I was just surprised when he died. Because it's like, other than that, it wasn't that kind of movie where major characters would die. So that was an interesting twist. But I thought it worked well, the way they set it up and did it. And it gave the kid room to like become the saving hero who defeated Valentine. But I gotta go, so I can't really talk that much more about it, and I've already talked for long enough, so arrivederci!